Stand by for exciting NHRA Pro Modified action as Inside Drag Racing follows Pro Modified driver Donnie Walsh through several races. Coming at you, IDR next. Welcome, drag race fans, to another edition of Inside Drag Racing. This week, we're coming to you from the Thunder Valley Nationals at Bristol International Dragway in Bristol, Tennessee. Hello again, everyone. I'm Ted Jones, and this week we're going to follow Pro Modified racer Don Walsh through his weekend to show you what goes on, some of the inside stuff. We'll follow the crew down the drag strip, talk to Don. Matter of fact, he's out here doing his most important job. You wrap your own chute.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Most of the guys out here do. Some of them have crew members that have done it for a long time. It's just one of the jobs that I picked up, and I like to be responsible for it. Out here with this car going over 250 miles an hour, if the chutes don't come out, it's one of those things I just as soon blame myself. So.
Yeah, then it's your fault.
Absolutely.
Now, you're in a different position. You're the points leader, my friend.
Yeah, it's a good feeling to be the points leader right now. But the truth of the matter is this is the fifth race. So we've got 4 races in. There's 6 races to go. And I don't know if you've noticed, but these Pro Mod guys are pretty hungry. So we've got a pretty good deal on our back, and we know that.
I've also noticed that anything can happen. I mean, it's unbelievable. You can be #1 qualifier doing great, and all of a sudden, it just doesn't work.
Well, and that's the whole thing. You know, these cars have over 3,000 horsepower. You're trying to get them down to different track, different weather. One morning we could have sun and it'd be 75 degrees. We could wake up with rain the night before and it could be 65 degrees. And we have a whole new racetrack. So this whole deal, it's far more than just a fast car or a good driver. It's the whole team. The whole team has to do their job. Tuner has to do a phenomenal job on these cars. And I've got Harry Haruska tuning the car, and he's doing a great job. So, like I said, the whole team's doing their job, and that's what's put us where we're at. And we just need to keep doing that round by round. If we can do that, I feel we have a team that can win a championship.
As a matter of fact, they're changing the 4-link around and making a few changes from what they learned in the previous race. Let's catch up with Harry Haruska and find out about that.
Well, we're going to make a change because the car is wheel standing on the gear change, and it's got too much bite down track. So we're going to shorten the 4-link in the car so we actually have more traction at the starting line and a little bit less, about 2 seconds in the run, to keep the car from getting up in the air.
And why is it wheel standing? What's changed? What's causing that?
Well, the wheel stand is just the gear ratios from first to second gear. It's got so much gear ratio for second gear that actually thinks it's still in first gear. It pulls over 3 Gs on the gear change, snaps the front end right off the ground. Makes it kind of tough to steer the car, so we want to settle it down a little bit.
And you've changed spark plugs.
Yep, our brisk spark plugs have made a huge difference too, because they keep lighting on the gear changes where sometimes cylinders drop out because of the huge gear change from a high RPM to a low RPM, and these things keep lighting, so that adds to the torque, and that helps roll the car up.
And here comes the final pair of Pro Mod, Billy Glidden and Don Walsh, #1 and #2 in the points. Don Walsh is in the turbocharged 2014 Camaro, and Billy Glidden, the winner at Englishtown, a fan and emotional favorite in the 2010 Mustang. Glidden, 903-inch combination, of course, on nitrous oxide, and he is, of course, the son of Bob Glidden, the Pro Stock legend. Billy Glidden captured his first Pro Mod national event win at Englishtown, New Jersey 2 weeks ago. If there is one signature move that Walsh's car makes, it's pulling wheel stands between 330 feet and the 8th mile. This car has had the front end up more in that span of the racetrack than any other car we have ever had out there. Pay attention to the front end of the red Camaro. The crazier thing about the wheel stand is that it doesn't even scare Walsh anymore. He just keeps his foot planted in it and lets the thing do what it wants. Nitrous and turbos, they're pre-stage. #1 and #2 in the points. Where do they end up after this first qualifying session? Glidden. Walsh went deep, he rolled through the tree, so Walsh will get nothing. Glidden's car throwing the header flames up, you see it fattened up there, and Bill Glidden goes 6.072 at 239 miles an hour.
This edition of Inside Drag Racing brought to you by ARP, the world leader in racing faster technology, and by Precision Turbo, the world's foremost manufacturer of high-performance aftermarket turbochargers, and by Aeromotive. We know it, we race it, we live it. Welcome back to Inside Drag Racing. Well, we have round number one, and what happened out there?
Well, we went up there to make the run. We just replaced the clutch pack in the drive unit, and it didn't want to stage. The clutches were a little bit too tight. We need to loosen them up a little bit. So the car didn't want to stage, so I held the button down. It drove through the light there. So we didn't get a time, but the car did make a real nice pass. So we're real excited about where we can go from here. We just need the weather to hold out a little bit so we can get on there and get down there.
Yeah, you did go ahead and make a run, so you got something for the computer.
Well, that's a good thing. Even when you have a problem like that on the starting line, you want to try and at least make it down so at least you get that data. So we've got that, and that'll help Harry out in the decisions for the next round.
All right, speaking of Harry, let's go in and see what he found out. Harry, so he made a run so you could look at that. What do you see up there?
Well, we made a lot of changes on the car. We made the 4-link change, we made a torque converter change, and actually we put a new motor in the car too. So, I mean, we got a lot of variables going on here. The blue line up here is Englishtown, our best qualifier. We went 579, 254, or something like that. And you can see that on the gear change, it picked the front end up. Remember I told you that was going on? And look how much. It's a huge, huge move there on the ride height. And today, our first qualifier with the new motor, new torque converter, some different ratios. Drive shaft's a little bit behind Englishtown, but of course, we're 4,000 foot higher here with density altitude, so the car is going to not perform quite as well. But look at the big change here is we're not nearly as looking at the moon because the ride height, it is a small change compared to that big move. So we're in the right direction.
Yeah, he's still got a little wheel stand.
He's got a little bit. We can still work on it though. You know, and there was a good run, so we can't wait for the next one.
Okay, next qualifying run coming up next.
Air temperature is down. The water grains are still very high. Not actually, we're not in record-setting conditions here, but what we are in is a situation where we have 30 race cars trying to get into 16 spots. 2 weeks ago at Englishtown, we had the quickest qualified field in the history of this category at 594. Do I think we can see a bump spot in the 590s after tonight? Absolutely. Do I think we'll see one at 594? Yeah, probably not. Two cars that can run way down in the 5-second zone, Don Walsh and Mike Knowles. Walsh, the Pure Power Lifetime Filters, Precision, Turbo, and Engine sponsor 2014 turbocharged Camaro, and Harry Haruska. The Major Domo at Precision Turbo and Engine is the crew chief on Don Walsh's car. Walsh's car, again, is known to pull wheel stands at mid-track. Keep your eyes peeled on the turbocharged Camaro. If it's stuck to the drag strip, anything can happen. And Mike Knowles is hanging on to it. Boy, oh boy. Knowles goes 6.006 at a 240, and look at Don Walsh, 586 with a 4. Look at the speed, 252 miles an hour for Walsh in that incredibly high-powered turbo car. 586, 4. We thought Genesis 595 was very stout. Well, Walsh just leapfrogged it by a 10th. Man alive, 252 miles an hour. Walsh, of course, took his time getting off the starting line, but once he did, it was a playground for him out there. Knowles, that 6.006, moves him to the number 7 spot. But Don Walsh going in the 80s. Wow, wow, wow.
252?
Yeah, it ran some mile an hour last night. It really surprised us. We figured we could go 250 here, but we didn't see that 252 coming. So the car made an awesome pass last night.
So the wheelie bar adjustment worked too.
Well, we changed the wheelie bar adjustment. We changed the 4-link in the car, and it seemed to calm it down a little bit. The car seemed to keep the front end down, and made a nice clean pass. So we haven't made, even though we've done well this year, we haven't made a lot of real clean passes. So it was a welcoming deal.
I think you had the attention of the rest of the guys with that ET.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we ran fast yesterday, and as the eliminations were going, or as the qualifying was going, guys you see kept stepping up more and more, and I think people realized that the track was better than we really all thought. And like you saw Bob Ram at the end of the day went a 90 with the chutes out because he almost wrecked the car. So they can run faster than we did yesterday, and I hope that we can run as fast as they can or a little bit faster.
Well, it cooled down.
Yeah, it did cool down, but still, the temperature isn't as big of a deal as the water grains and everything else that are going on here and the elevation. Yesterday we were at 4,400 feet, so that's tough to conquer.
It's time now for this week's Quarter Mile Quiz, brought to you by ARP, the world leader in racing fastener technology. Sylvia from Niagara Falls, New York, wrote in and wants to know how many RPMs does a turbo make while running and how much boost? Well, to get that answer, Sylvia, we'll turn to Harry Ruska from Precision Turbo. That is after the break. You're watching Inside Drag Racing. We need to come up with an answer now to this week's ARP Quarter Mile Quiz question, which is, how many RPMs does a turbo make while running and how much boost? For the answer, here's Harry Ruska with Precision Turbo.
Well, in Pro Mod NHRA, we're limited to 43 pounds of boost, so that limits speed a little bit. On these cars, we're typically turning the turbocharger around 140,000 RPM. Now, think about that. That's over 2,000 revolutions per second. That's fast.
As our final pair of the night comes up, and these are the two cars that have potential to dive bomb under that 85, and the car that shows the most potential to do it, at least in their earlier qualifying runs, belongs to Don Walsh from Wixom, Michigan. Walsh has been in, I believe, in almost every final of the year so far. Outside of Gainesville, this car has been deep in the rounds, race after race. The Pure Power Lifetime Filters, Precision Turbo and Engine sponsored 2014 Camaro Crew Chief by Harry Haruska, going to be lined up next to Bob Ram, Grosse Pointe, Michigan. That 872-inch. Actually, I believe he's upgraded to the larger 903-inch package in this car, the rear Morrison engine under the hood for Ram. Will Janice stand at number one, or will one of these two cars wrest it away? It's the last chance for any ordering to change, the last chance for someone to make an impact in qualifying before round one eliminations begin tomorrow morning. 9:59 short time for Bob Ram. These two are smoking down there. 579.8, 245 miles an hour, 587.7, 253 across the stripe. Look at the speed, man. 253 on that. That is the big speed of the meet, but the 587 does not move Mike Janice and crew off of the number one qualifying position. So a very exciting end of the night in Pro Modified.
So in the final qualifying round, it looks like Donnie Walsh ran at 87. It's about the same as the 86. What now, Harry? Ram ran a 79.
Yeah, he's really fast. Very impressive run for Bob.
So what do we change?
Well, basically, we've got to stop pedaling the car. We actually pedaled the car in on our best qualifying run, and also on this run as well.
Show us up here.
Well, the easiest way to show you is here's what's going on in the race car. This is engine RPM. This is a drive shaft. And this is a shock graph, and you see these little squiggly lines here?
Yes.
The driver can feel that, and when he felt it, he realized the car was in tire shake, and what he needed to do is pedal the car. And this is the throttle position. He actually took his foot out of the gas, hit it again, and then went on down the racetrack. That's a lot of time to be out of the throttle. That's almost 3/4 of a second.
So that cost you ET.
Oh, big time. I mean, we went at 87. We should have run a 79, 78, maybe even better.
Wow. So what do you change today?
Well, it's a bit of a crapshoot, to be honest with you. We made a lot of changes on the car coming here. We haven't made a clean pass yet. We're going to change some differences in our transmission pressure and some of the tune-up, and maybe even some shock adjustments, see if we can make it work.
I think he's not going to answer me exactly, because it might be one of those, if I tell you, I'd have to kill you. Well, you were qualified number one, and then you had some shake. What's up with that?
Yeah, we shook the tires. You know, we're struggling with the racetrack a little bit. Every time you go to a new place, you've got different weather, you've got different racetrack, and so we're just working through it, and hopefully we've got it for first round.
Billy Glidden getting the job done. 014-6028 at 242. And the racer from Whiteland, Indiana will advance to round number 2. So Billy Glidden continues to do well in the points. At the start of the season, we've seen a couple of racers really rise to the top, and Billy Glidden is one of them. The other one is Don Walsh. Don backing up that 2014 Camaro with the Pure Power Lifetime filters on board out of Wixom, Michigan. Harry Ruska doing the tuning, and Danny Rowe. Danny Rowe, another Agave Underground Tequila machine. Danny and Val putting the team together. Jimmy Rector doing the tuning. We saw Steve Matuzik a moment ago. Danny's out of Laguna Hills, California. Big personality in Pro Modified. Wheelie bar adjustments going on Don Walsh's car. Don Walsh sporting the turbocharger. You can tell by the flat hood. They've been chasing a situation throughout the season. The car has been wanting to hike the tires at half track. Been doing some pretty sizable half track wheel stands. And Don is just keeping the hammer down. Turning on a ton of wind lights. One out in Houston. Now trying to get around the number 14 qualifier, Danny Rowe. On paper, Don Walsh has the advantage, but we don't run him on paper. Huge reaction time advantage going to Danny Rowe, and Danny Rowe runs 5.94.7, 244.74 miles per hour. No, we don't run them on paper. 725.8 at 139 for Don Walsh. Car just never seemed to perform the way they would have liked. Right from the hit.
On to Norwalk. What happened, man? Tell me.
You know, we don't know what we had. We had a failure somewhere in the driveline, and it blew the oil pan apart on the trans and put oil all inside the car. Almost started a fire in there. There's so much smoke in there I couldn't see out the front, couldn't see out the side. It got interesting in there. But we'll regroup and come to Norwalk, and we need to march on because we're right now, as of now, we're still in the lead, and we want to stay at least close. So that's where we're at.
You're hanging around to see how Ram does?
No, we're just out of energy. We've been really working on that car. We've been working on that car hard all weekend, and really struggled this weekend. So all the guys they're just worn down. So closing shop here and getting ready to leave is just taking a little longer than usual. And we had a lot of cleanup to do because if you don't clean it up here, put it in the trailer, the whole upper deck's going to be oil. So that's it.
Okay, folks, I'll tell you what. We'll continue this in Norwalk, Ohio. Inside Drag Racing is being brought to you by ARP, the world leader in racing faster technology, and by Precision Turbo, world's foremost manufacturer of high-performance and aftermarket turbochargers, and by Steel Rubber Products, quality crafted rubber parts and weather stripping. Welcome back to Inside Drag Racing. Well, as promised, we moved up to Norwalk, Ohio, Summit Motorsports Park, the next round. And Harry, let's talk about what happened at Bristol now that you've taken it home and analyzed it. What happened out there?
Well, what happened in Bristol is we had a lot of time in staging because the air quality in Bristol is 4,500 feet. So to get this car up on boost took a little bit longer time. The actual wide open throttle time in staging process was 12 seconds before the car ever left the starting line.
Long time.
It's a long time. And the heat generated in the torque converter just in the staging process is somewhere between 270 and 320 degrees before we leave the starting line. That's in 6 seconds. Now double that, about 50 degrees for every second. So probably the torque converter, the transmission fluid was probably around 600 degrees at the time we left the starting line. We haven't made our run yet.
And
So
what happens at 600 degrees?
Well, what happened was, in about 2 seconds later, the actual fluid boiled in the transmission. It kind of did not a controlled explosion in transmission. It expanded so quickly that it blew out all the seals and actually blew out our transmission oil pan and covered the whole inside of the car with oil. It was a very dangerous situation.
Have you made any change now here at Norwalk, went all the way back home, to maybe prevent that from occurring?
Well, we did. What we did is obviously we immediately took everything apart. We realized, what had happened, and we made hundreds of runs on automatic transmissions without this. But when safety comes into play, you have to make an adjustment. Well, we want to protect the driver. Nobody wants hot oil on a driver. Nobody wants the possibility of fire in the car. So we have a number of things. I'm going to say this is stage one. I think you're going to see in the next race at Indianapolis, we're going to have stage two. We're going to have a lot more work done. But right now, we're able to do in just a few days is instead of having a welded aluminum pan, we made a billet aluminum pan on a CNC, one of DMG Maury Ellison machines, and very quickly made a billet aluminum transmission pan.
So now that pan will hold.
And that pan will hold. We've already tested on our software at over 200 PSI, and it's going to hold quite easily. The other pan failed at somewhere around 125 PSI.
Okay, folks, so there you have it. Let's go to the track and see what happens with Donnie Walsh.
And another pair of cars that remain shockingly unqualified until this moment present themselves on the racetrack. Jerry Capano from Greenville, Delaware, and Don Walsh from Wixom, Michigan. If this were a mile-an-hour qualifying deal, Walsh should be in. He went 6:03, 2:48. But 6:03 is not going to get you there. The bump spot, as you can see, we have an all 5-second field now. The bump spot on the scoreboard moved to 5:99. Boost management, fuel management, the two big things that came along. The electronic ability to tune these engines and make them work with the with the turbos is what made it manageable. Racers like Annette Sommer, Bob Rieger, some very smart people were out ahead of the curve with these turbo cars. But it took a couple more seasons to really get them perfected, and now they are hard runners. Don Walsh, this car can mile an hour like crazy, but can it ET on this pass? Capano, the more violently leaving blown car. It'll be interesting to see how they take the first 60 feet of the track. Don Walsh's car gets sideways. He's got a lift. Walsh will not be racing. Capano goes 6:007 and misses it by about a hundredth. 6:007, 2:37 moves Jerry Capano to number 18. Brutal. Don Walsh goes 8:44 at 126 miles an hour, so Don Walsh will not be racing. We talked about this during the first session. There was a couple of guys that are out here this weekend that we don't normally see. One of them is Robert Patrick, and Robert Patrick is number 10. We haven't seen Robert Patrick all year. We see Don Walsh at every race, and Don Walsh will not be racing when round one happens. That is amazing.
A tough week for Donnie Walsh. You know what? That's drag racing. You like Pro Modified action? Check it out. The NHRA Pro Modifieds are on every Thursday here on MAV TV at 5 p.m. 10 events we'll be covering for you, so be sure and catch Donnie Walsh and all the NHRA Pro Modified stars every Thursday at 5 p.m. Until then, I'm Ted Jones. Thanks for watching. Talk about more action coming up. Well, you like Top Fuel Harleys? Crazy guys! Running nitromethane, running over 200 miles per hour. We'll have that action for you next week from Bristol, Tennessee. Until then, so long, everyone.